If you've ever wondered what 3 months worth of work looks like summed up in about 45 minutes, then this is going to be the video for you. So I realize most of you that have watched this renovation and the demo series, I haven't really told you a whole lot about this camper. This is a 2009 North Trail that I actually bought from somebody who had originally reached out to me asking for some help with water damage to the bathroom. And then I guess it just ended up being more work than he wanted to put into it. And he eventually sold me this camper for $2,600. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I did think that was a good deal. Even given the amount of water damage that this trailer had, it does have more water damage than I originally anticipated. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm not too mad about it because it's sometimes easier to fix large sections of water damage than it is to fix small sections of water damage. Now, I think the demolition part of any renovation is probably the most satisfying part for me because I really like to see everything come out and just give it like a blank slate. And if you've watched any of my stuff, you know that I typically don't reuse most things in campers. They're pretty much trash anyway. Some of the way that things are built, I don't like it. I'm not happy with it. They do kind of a crap job sometimes of putting in different supplies for campers, and I like to rebuild it better than the manufacturer originally built it. So that's where you're going to see me do a lot of things here. I don't know if you can tell from this picture or this video right here, but this bathroom was the worst water damage I've ever seen on a bathroom or on a floor in general. The entire thing was completely rotted out. I couldn't even step on it because it was so rotted. I would literally just fall through. Now this front wall was also pretty bad. You see it just comes up right there. It was super gross. Now I had 100% expected this because I could clearly tell from the outside that this delamination was severe. And this is actually super common in this type of camper because of the way that they line the roof. That roof membrane, they actually tuck it underneath the fiberglass instead of tucking it over the fiberglass. So when you have a roof leak, all the water just runs down the front into the wall and onto the floor, which is pretty much what happened in this case. And you see exactly how far over that water damage went. There's even water damage in this slide, which I didn't see that coming, but it's okay. I'm not mad about it because that gave me an opportunity to do something different. Now, I'm not really going to go into how you repair all of this because if you want more in-depth conversations on that, I have all of this but basically separated out into different videos, and you can go back and watch those. This is pretty much just a time lapse and me telling you more about this camper, my vision for it, and I'll even go over the cost, and I'll go over the story of the client and how I sold it and how much I sold it for. And now I will say this was a little bit of a surprise for me because I have not repaired a camper that had a floor like this. And so I was kind of just like digging around trying to figure out how I could take this floor up with minimal effort possible. And I got a little frustrated in the beginning because I didn't realize it could all come up in one sheet. And once I realized that it was like, it was plywood, like 1/8-inch plywood, sandwiched between foam and another piece of plywood on top, it became a whole lot easier to take that floor out. So now that I know that, I just cut the whole thing out, and now the floor can just come right up. So I'm going to rebuild all of this, obviously, and there's the underbelly exposed to the camper if you're ever curious on what it looks like. Here's this bathroom right here. You see just how bad that is. I mean, I can just rip that stuff up with my hands. This was definitely a little tricky with all of the plumbing right there and the black water tank also being right there. I've also never repaired a floor with the black water tank in the bathroom exactly like that with the flange sticking up. So that required a little bit of thought on my end to figure out how I was going to fix that without replacing the flange on there or without damaging the tank itself, because super easy to just not screw, but like saw in a little too much and go right through the floor. This awning fabric was also trash, so I figured I needed to take this entire roof off anyway. So awning's gonna go, roof is pretty much gonna go. There was water damage on the back of the roof. So typically whenever I replace a roof, which is always, there's never been any occasion where I've renovated an RV and not replace the roof. So if you're thinking about renovating your own RV, keep that in the back of your mind, especially if you're going to sell it to somebody. I don't feel right about selling a renovated RV without fixing the leaking issues and without giving it a new roof, because I feel like if somebody is going to pay for a renovated RV, it better be top notch. And that's just my personal opinion. I know lots of other influencers that sell RVs that pretty much slap lipstick on a pig, and that's not really my thing. So if that's what you're fixing to do, this is probably not the series for you. I'm going to be honest with you, because I probably go a little bit above and beyond what most people would do, but that's because I like things done right. I think there is an order to how you renovate, and an order to how you do things, and same thing in life. There's an order to life, and there's an order that things go. And if you don't do everything in the right order, then sometimes you can come up with something that isn't really your best work or the best plan. Now, given that, I will say I really like roof work. I don't know why I like roof work. I'm killing my knees by doing roof work, but I think it's so much fun to rebuild something that was just completely trashed before. And I also get this question a lot: is there ever a time where an RV has too much water damage? And my answer to that is absolutely yes for me, because I have had some campers that have reached my sanity limit for the amount of water damage that it has. This would be one of those campers, but I was already too far into it by the time I realized how bad it was. And then I was like, you know what? This is going to be a good learning experience, because I want to show the world what this looks like. And if you get discouraged, like a lot of people do, especially if you're fixing your own RV, that it is possible. You just have to be determined enough and have enough sanity to be able to get it done right. Now, the one thing that I didn't really like about this RV is the fact that it had 1/8" plywood on the roof. Now, because of that, I went ahead and added another layer of 1/8" plywood. That way it was at least 1/4 inch thick. Still not the best, but that's just how they manufactured this, and that's what we're working with. So after I routed out all of the holes for this, can put the new skin on. This is a PVC membrane, and I really like this because it's got a 10-year warranty, and different than many of the other types of roof, if you actually get a tear in this, then you can get a patch of the same roof skin. You can actually create a PVC patch for this that's like just as good as anything else. And so that's like ideal if you ever get a hole in your roof. Now, the whole front of this camper also needed to come off because it was pretty bad. And as you can see, fairly easy to take the front of the camper off. I think many people are surprised at how easy it is to take these things apart, but it's literally just a shell that has a couple screws on the side, maybe even stapled in, maybe not even screws, that attaches it to the front of the camper. And then once it's off, I can go ahead and rebuild it and put it back on. Also, I'm sorry if you guys hear my kids screaming occasionally in the background. Happens a lot in my house. I have 3 boys, which is part of the reason why it takes me so long to do things. I also homeschool my 3 boys, which is another reason why it takes me so long to do things. And so my house is usually always very loud and very chaotic. All right, so a little bit of a backstory as to how this camper ended up for a client. So I actually bought this camper with the intention of flipping it. I haven't done a flip in a really long time. Most of my work last year was all clients, which is great because that means I don't have the upfront cost and investment of buying a camper and then paying to renovate it for myself or through my business. So it's been really great to not have that burden, but at the same time, I couldn't pass up this opportunity, and so I took it. So fast forward couple weeks. This actually sat in my yard for maybe a month before I even got to it because I was finishing up a horse trailer conversion for another client before I could even think about getting to this. I figured it was already leaking, and honestly, it couldn't get much worse than what this camper was beforehand. So I was like, I'm just going to let it sit. I'm not going to mess with it until I have the time to get there. Now, I have a very, very good friend down the road from me, and she called me to come look at a camper that they bought, and there was just so much water damage to this camper. It was it had I think it had 3 slide outs maybe in it. I mean, it was a pretty decent sized camper. She got it for a good price. And it was a fiberglass camper like this, but the problem is it had so much water damage all over it, and it is so hard to fix water damage on delaminated campers like this. I'll say it a million times over, the campers that have aluminum siding are so much easier to fix than campers like this that are basically just put together with foam. Now, she asked me for a quote to repair the water damage on that, and I told her, I was like, look, the amount of money you're going to have to sink into this thing to get it fixed just is not worth your investment. And so I told her, I was like, I would just cut your losses. I would sell it, and I would find something else that you could spend your money better on and get more quality. And she actually took my advice. So she sold that camper. And then when I bought this one, I hadn't intended on selling it to them, but then the more that I had it in my yard and the more that I just thought through it and prayed through it, I felt like the Holy Spirit was telling me that this camper needed to go to them. So from that point on, I had it in my mind that I was building this camper and renovating this camper for them. Now, they didn't know this at the time, which is kind of funny. I waited quite a while before to tell them that I was renovating this camper for them because I knew what their budget was, and it wasn't anywhere close to what I could sell this camper for. And so I knew I would be kind of taking a hit on the price at this point, but I know how God works, and He always makes up the money for me in the long run, and He always blesses me when I obey Him. So I'm not really worried about it. So anyway, that's kind of most of the backstory to how this ended up being a client camper. And I honestly have no regrets. She's actually had this camper for maybe about, it was November when she came and picked it up. And so she's had it for a little while, and they've been on their trips already and they're enjoying it. And I just love that it went to them because I love their family. And I feel like the Holy Spirit really knew what He was doing when He told me that this camper was going to be for them. It was also a really cool kind of like twist because she was also going through a little transition herself. So she used to, or she still does, she owns the coffee shop that's right up the road from me. And that's actually how I met her, is I started going there and getting coffee. And then our church started a kindergarten. So it's like a Christian-based education. And she actually decided to take a job as the new principal there. So she was kind of transitioning from, full-time working at the coffee place to now being in charge of a kindergarten Christian education, which is a huge thing. So that was kind of a cool transition, and God used me to bless her through that and for her obedience. So I was obedient, she was obedient, and I feel like it really just worked out in everyone's favor. So that was kind of cool. Okay, now back to this camper right here. I know you've probably seen me touch a lot of bugs and stuff here, but I really like including some of that stuff because you guys probably don't know this because you don't know me, but I like bugs. I like snakes. I think they're all really cool. I was obsessed with hamsters and rats and rodents growing up. I always had one. So I guess that just goes to or attests to my super weird personality. So if there's any doubt that I've always been weird, just look back at my childhood and I assure you I've always been weird. Now this slide out was pretty bad right here, but I was actually really excited that this was that rotten because it gave me the chance to rebuild it, and that's exactly what I did. So I don't know if you guys remember, but in the beginning, there's a crawdad. Sorry, in the beginning, it was kind of like a dinette, like a weird dinette, and now I am building it into a couch, which is super cool. Now, one thing I will suggest if you're going to try and renovate a camper yourself is have help, because I did this entire renovation by myself and it just makes things so much easier, especially when you're putting back an awning, to have two people. It'll also probably take you twice as long, but it takes me pretty long to do things anyway, so I don't know if that's really saying much. I also know how my brain works, and I have a hard time working with other people. There's specific people that I'm really good at working with, but there's other people that not so much, because it frustrates me when somebody isn't detail oriented and I have to go back and redo the work that was supposed to be done right the first time. So my brain is very OCD when it comes to certain things, especially when it's something that matters, like electrical or framing or plumbing or anything else like that. My brain just functions on a different level than some people, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I don't really know. But I like to try to do my best work, and something that I've learned along the way is if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to regret it. And for the people who say, no, I'm not going to regret that. Yes, you will. You absolutely will. And I speak from personal experience. I remember on one camper specifically, this was the one that made me rethink that any camper can be saved. And the slide had some pretty significant damage. So I didn't want to have to take the slide out of the camper. And so I repaired it in a way that I thought was going to be okay. And then when I was like finished with the renovation and I slid the camper, or slid the slide out, like in and out, I noticed that one side of the slide looked like it was drooping. And it's because the support that I thought was good was not good. And so I ended up having to take the slide out, open the wall back up, repair it like it should have been repaired in the first place, and put everything back together. So I hope that's a lesson for you. Do the hard thing now while you already have it out. And in this case, this was a hard thing. There was a significant amount of this floor that needed to be repaired. And I knew that this was my one shot to do it because it was already apart. I already had all the cabinets out. I didn't want to have to just do it halfway and then come back and something else goes wrong. So this is a good lesson. Don't try to skimp. Don't try to do things quickly. You need to do it right, or else you're just going to have several problems later on down the road. It's always so frustrating to me to see other people that do this not repair water damage, because it's not even just the water damage that bothers me. It's the mold that's in the camper that doesn't get addressed. They just like paint over it or try to like patch it with something. And it's not the right way to do it. And it's going to be bad for whoever buys it in the long run. Now, there's a couple other things that I want to talk about in relation to RV renovation. Say that you're getting into renovating an RV for the first time. There's a lot of things that you really need to know and understand about campers before you can start the renovation process. One thing is if you find water damage, that has to be addressed before you can do anything else. I call this getting to basically square one. You're getting the camper to where everything is fixed, everything is functional, and then you're ready for the renovation. So that water damage needs to be repaired before you can do anything else, because you're going to have to take a lot of things out in order to fix that water damage, depending on where the water damage is. In this case, the water damage was everywhere, pretty much. I pretty much took the entire floor of this camper out, and the front wall and the entire back wall came out too as well. So this one had a significant amount. And there was also a bird in this camper. Funny story. And I actually had to wait to put the floor in until the birds hatched and flew away. So that was a little kind of waiting job right there, because that did take quite a while for them to finally fly the coop. Okay, anyway, back to what I was saying. So again, definitely need to repair the water damage first. I have seen just so many people not do that, and it just makes me cringe. But it's also one of those things like, who am I to call these people out who are selling these renovated campers and not using the correct products and the correct methods and the correct supplies, just all of it. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I've definitely learned a lot over the past couple years about what you can use in campers and what's not. what not to use. But there's just some things that I stay away from. Anything peel and stick is going to be one of those things. And if you've watched me in any type of content, I hope that I've covered the fact that I cannot stand peel and stick, either wallpaper or like sticky tiles for a backsplash. They will always fall out. I don't care what you tell me. The heat, the extreme temperatures, like some people are like, oh, I've had it on there for 3 years and it's done great. Like, has it really? Or have you had to walk in and constantly rub your hand on it to stick it back? It may not have fully come off the wall, but you got to touch it and stick it back every time you walk by it. Let's also not talk about the yellowing and the discoloration of the sticky tiles. I've also had that happen too. So from now on, I just stay clear from anything that's peel and stick. It's not worth it to me. Also about paint and primer. Lots of things about paint and primer. So if you don't do this properly, this is going to be a huge oopsie for you. And the main thing is to use the right kind of primer and to let it cure for long enough, because if you don't do that, then it's going to scratch and the paint is not going to stick and it's going to be bad and you're going to regret every decision that you made when it came to renovating campers. I personally like to use Kills primer. I've had really good success with that. And you have to let it cure for at least 24 hours, preferably 2 or 3 days. I did this in the summertime, and it cures a lot faster when it's warmer outside. So just keep that in the back of your brain. Another thing that I also like to do when renovating campers is build an entertainment center. And I don't know why campers don't come with like pre-built entertainment centers like this, because they're just so nice, and you seriously cannot beat a good fireplace and a good TV when it's cold outside and you're camping. It's literally one of my favorite things ever. And so I knew I was going to make an entertainment center here. Typically I make them in front of the bed, but with the layout, the layout just didn't allow for that. And there was already kind of a small entertainment center right here. So I was like, you know what? This looks like a good place for it. And I also usually put a 40-inch TV in there, but with the wall space that I had here, I could only make this like 36, maybe 37. And so it's a little bit smaller TV, but still big for a camper. And also as a side note, if there's any question that you have on what supplies I used or materials or anything else like that. So most of the materials and fixtures and all of that stuff, water damage repair supplies, plumbing supplies are also on there, roof supplies. I have all of that linked in my Amazon storefront. So that's going to be a really good resource if you're looking at one of my videos and you're like, I wonder what she used there. Well, head over there and check it out. I have everything linked from this specific renovation. As far as wood and supplies goes, I mostly use 2x4s, some pine board, lots of sheets of 1/8-inch plywood, and some 7/16 OSB for some other random things. But as always, if it's not covered in any of those, feel free to comment and ask me. I do try really hard to respond to comments, but sometimes my ADHD kicks in and I just lose track. So if I don't answer you the first time, ask me again. But I do try really hard to answer them when I see it. Because sometimes I mean, don't forget that I do have 3 kids that I homeschool. Okay. I run my own business. I make sourdough. And in the summertime, I have my own garden. Like, I do so many things on top of fixing all of the things that break in my house. Or any of my friends' things that they need fixing, they also call me for. So my brain has like 70,000 tabs open at any given time. Anyway, if there's any RV renovation or water damage questions that you guys have, just feel free to comment down below and I will do my best to answer them. You can also email me. My email is fallenintocamping@gmail.com, which I'm pretty sure you can find that email anywhere on my link tree, which should be linked in the bio of my channel. So check out all the resources that I have there because you might be interested in any of those. I also just did come out with a used RV buying guide to avoid all of the water damage. So if you guys would find that helpful, just check that out. I did include lots of pictures, so you can specifically see what you're going to be looking for when you buy a used RV, so you don't end up with an RV that has a lot of water damage like this one does. Very specific things to look for, wall textures, all of that good stuff. Things to check, roof, all of that stuff is in there. So it is $25, I'll just warn you. But that goes to basically support my business on the months where I can't renovate campers because I am homeschooling my kids. So just know that when you pay that, I'm not trying to like rip you off or like, get rich on it, because obviously I don't think that many people would ever be interested in it. But it's enough to float my business in the off seasons. Now, another question that I get asked a lot, and I have not answered this question yet to anybody, because I was kind of saving it for my final reveal video here, is how much does it actually cost to renovate an RV? And I also think that answer depends on each person. Me personally, I think the cost is much higher than those would expect it to be, but it's because of the quality of products that I use. Now you see some people, they literally spray paint everything, including lights. They take everything off. Everything's coated in spray paint. They use the cheapest fixtures possible. Like they just want to get this thing looking nice, but actually not being nice. And that is something that you will never see me doing, just because I don't believe in doing things halfway. I think it would really bother me, and it does bother me, to not use something that I know is going to last, because when you really think about it, it's my name on the line. Like if I don't do good work and if I don't put the effort in and the money in to make this thing last, it's really my reputation on the line, because then they're going to be like, oh, Heather uses cheap materials. Heather does this. Heather does that. And I don't want any of my clients to ever feel like the reason why I do what I do is because I'm trying to go the cheap way out. Because I realize in the long scheme of things, sometimes the cheap way is not the best way. And I've learned that the hard way through renovating several RVs. I've also learned that the hard way when it comes to fixing vehicles. So my husband really likes diesel trucks, and it's kind of my own fault, because when I wanted to upgrade to a fifth wheel, I was like, hey, we're going to need to get a diesel truck. And he's like, I don't know if I want a diesel truck. Well, we got a diesel truck. It was literally the love of his life. Okay. He loved that truck so much. And I don't know if you guys know anything about Fords, but it was a 2005 F250. It had a 6.0 diesel in it. And my husband absolutely loved the sound of that 6.0. All right. Like it was like every time he turned it on, you could just see him smile because of the way that it sounded. And anyway, if you know anything about 6.0s, they're notorious for blown head gaskets. And unfortunately, even though we got a really good deal on this truck, it had a blown head gasket, but we didn't know it until we started towing. Because the guy we bought it from just towed a boat with it, and it was very light duty. So he wouldn't have seen it, even if it, the head gasket had been blown a while. He didn't notice it, whatever. It's fine. We got it for such a good price that it was worth it for me to take the engine out and rebuild it. And that's exactly what I did. And anybody who knows anything about engine works knows that when you're so deep into a project, it's one of those like, well, might as well replace it while I'm here type of things. Especially like all the way down to like the rod and the main bearings. It's like, well, might as well replace them while we're here. We already got it out. So pretty much all the new sensors, all new, literally everything. I spent so much money on that truck, fixing it and rebuilding it. And then it ran great and it towed our camper perfect. And then it was probably 6 weeks later, somebody pulled out in front of my husband and the truck was totaled. So, yep, I learned a lot of lessons on that one. But I like to apply the same philosophy here, because you're already this deep in it. You might as well do it right. And might as well put it back the way that you want to put it back. So might as well. And that's exactly part of the reason why I built the shower like this. Is because it's always bothered me that RVs don't have like residential showers like we do in our house. And I wanted this to be kind of the same feel. So I built this setup exactly like you would have a shower in your house, and I built it as big as possible. Because if you remember, this was a corner shower and it was super small and there was like a lot of wasted space on the left-hand side. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to build a bigger shower. Why not? I already have everything out. So I bought the biggest shower pan that I could that would fit in that size, and I went for it. I installed all new water lines, all new hardware, all new everything for the shower. And this shower is actually going to turn out really cool because I put vinyl wall tiles or like marble wall tiles, and they just look so great and it's so wonderful. And this is another one of those projects that you'll see a lot of like Instagram or TikTok influencers do, and it's add these palisade tiles into their camper. And I know you guys have heard me say this too a million times. The reason that I don't like the way that they do it is because they don't waterproof the shower before they put the tiles in, and it's just a leak waiting to happen. So 2 steps of protection, especially if you're changing something in an RV, you want to make sure that you're not creating more spots for leaks. You want to make sure that you're doing it correctly and that you're not going to cause more damage to the RV than it's actually worth. All right, so my ADHD got the best of me right there, but I know I was coming back to the point of how much did this actually cost. So all in all, I paid $2,600 for this camper, and I probably spent maybe $6,000 or $7,000 renovating it, which is not as much as I usually spend. I typically spend about $10,000 all in, but I was trying to do this one more on a budget with still having quality supplies, which I kind of sacrificed some of the designs that I wanted to do on this because I was trying to keep it in the budget. And I ended up selling this camper for $10,500. So I didn't really make a whole lot of money on it. And they did end up giving me an extra $1,000. But I knew what their budget was, and I knew that this was supposed to be that client that I'm talking about. I knew this was supposed to be their camper. So even though I didn't really make money off of it, it's not a big deal. It's going to come back to me. It always does. God always provides for our family, and I am not worried about the cost or the time because it was time well spent glorifying God with the gifts that He's given me. So I'm not mad about it. It also helps that you guys have been watching these series because last year was the first year that I was monetized on YouTube. And so by you guys watching these videos, I do get money for it, which has been a really nice passive income to have. Especially that's pretty much what's been floating the renovation at this point is the money that I get from YouTube. Because, I've just started my business. Even though I've been doing it for a while, I just started it. It's been about a year, and I don't really have a whole lot of money saved up in my business account just because I spent it renovating this camper and then just used the YouTube money to float me on whatever else I needed to buy until it was time for my client to come pick up this camper. So thank you guys for those of you who've been watching all of these series and for really to those of you who have been with me since the beginning. I know there's a lot of you, and I do see your comments, and I really appreciate them, and I appreciate your support. And I appreciate the time that you take during the day to watch my videos because I understand that time is valuable, and there's other things that you could be doing with your time other than watching me. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you guys. So now I'm sorry that this video is kind of 45 minutes long, but I feel like I sped it up as much as I possibly could without missing anything. And what I didn't realize is that this was a lot of footage to sort through. Before I edited this was like, it was a lot. It was like 10 hours of footage or something like that. And that was all edited videos that I had already put on YouTube. So that was quite a bit. But that's okay because this is kind of cool to keep like seeing it all come along into one, especially when we get to this point. This was the renovation series. It started a little while back, but to see everything finally come back together and in its perfect form right here is just really cool. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is the part that gets me excited. And I know some people have commented that they struggle with being burnt out in renovations. And I feel like that's completely normal. And I don't want people to think that just because I do this for a living doesn't mean that I don't get burnt out, because I absolutely do. And that's actually why I kind of jump around at a lot of different things, is because I start doing one thing and then I get frustrated and burn out doing that one thing. And I have to move on to something different. Like this couch right here, I must have moved on and come back to this couch about 10 times because I got frustrated with how it was working and moving. And then I just kind of got burnt out on it, honestly. And if I wait long enough, if I get burnt out on something, usually if I wait it out and come back to it, my mind is fresh. So if you get to a point where you're burnt out like that, just take a break. It's okay to take a break. It's going to sit there. It's fine. But you know what? You need that mental space and that break away from it to do your best work. Either that or you just need like a sandwich, because I know sometimes I get really hangry and then my brain doesn't work. And so sometimes I just need to get a sandwich. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. Or I could be burnt out. It could be one of the two things. And I also think that's one of the things that not only excites me, but also frustrates me, is all of the different aspects to renovating an RV. This upholstery one right here is something that I really had to learn and master before I was able to make it look decent. I mean, I know I make it look easy, but I feel like I've upholstered so much stuff over the last few years that I just know how it works in my brain. And now I can just make it all work together. And I tell people all the time, they're like, why did you choose RVs? Why did you do that? And it's really because you have to learn how to be a plumber, how to be an electrician. You have to learn framing. You have to learn cabinetry. There's so many different aspects to renovating an RV the right way that I think it often gets overlooked, because it's not just the physical, like, wow aspect for me. I'm also really concerned with the functionality and with the mechanics of the RV itself. I don't just focus on making it look pretty. I focus on the whole RV as one unit. So that means I make sure everything works properly. If something doesn't work, then I fix it. I've had a lot of furnaces break. I've had a lot of hot water heaters break. Had a lot of air conditioners break. And sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not. But those are the things that I care about too, because I know that when this RV goes home to its new client, and if something like that breaks, then I'm going to feel responsible for it. And maybe that's just the part of me that's not a very good business owner. But for me, it's not about making money, obviously, because if it was, I'd probably be rich by now. But, I'm not. So there's that. But it's about connecting with people and giving them a safe place to be, and a place that can bring them joy. And, it gives me an opportunity to have conversations with them that I wouldn't normally have with other people. And when someone learns about me, I hope that maybe I'll lead them to learn more about Jesus one day. And that's obviously the ultimate goal for me, is to love people and show them the love of Jesus. And I know I'm probably going to lose followers for that. I lose followers every time I talk about how much I love Jesus. But that kind of leads me into the reason why I started renovating RVs and started doing this in the first place. And really how I became so popular on Instagram as well. So if you haven't seen me on Instagram, head over there. I've got 120,000 followers and growing. And that's really been in the last year that my Instagram has kind of blown up. And it's when I had this cool realization that the gifts that I have are not for me to just waste. They're for me to use the gifts that I have to glorify God in everything that I do. And just because I'm over here in my shop by myself, building things and fixing things, that doesn't mean that I can't use that time to worship and glorify God. And so because of that, I had this cool realization where I was like, hey, these are the gifts that I have and I can use them for a purpose. And once that kind of clicked in my head that these gifts that I have and these talents that I have, they came from God, then I actually gained 100,000 followers overnight, which is really insane and crazy. I had just one reel go viral all of a sudden after being posted for like 3 months. All of a sudden it just went viral. And that was really the start of how I started doing, YouTube and TikTok and all of that stuff. And I also get asked a lot, how did you start doing this? Because whether you believe it or not, I didn't just naturally know how to do all of these things. It was kind of skills that were learned throughout the years. My dad is actually one of those guys who knows everything about everything, and I pretty much learned most of what I know from him. But I think the biggest skill that he's taught me is critical thinking. And I've always admired how he can just look at something and figure out how it works and how it goes back together. And he pretty much taught me that you can apply the same principle to just about everything. If you figure out how something works, or if you figure out the pattern, or if you figure out what the system is, then you can figure out how to fix it. Because once you know how something works, you can quickly figure out what doesn't work. And that is a skill that I think is so useful now, and a skill that I'm trying to teach my children in a day and age where critical thinking is not really a thing anymore. And I've also learned a long time ago to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. Anybody that knows me knows I'm always asking questions because I always want to know more about something. And I really like and actually love that I can call my dad with any question that I have, and he pretty much knows the answer to just about every one of them. And if he doesn't, he says, well, I'll go find out. Just like that. If you knew my dad, you'd laugh that I said it like that. But anyway, he will always answer the phone when I call. Even if I call 75 times a day, he will answer the phone and answer any dumb, ridiculous question that I have. So find you somebody who knows a lot about a lot of things and just constantly irritate them, and force them to love you. So that's my advice if you want to learn how to do this. So now that you know that I didn't just learn all this just, because I was smart, I assure you that I'm not. I'm just very teachable. And I think it's very important to be a teachable person and to not be offended if you do something wrong and somebody tells you you're doing something wrong, because there's a lot of people in the world that know how to do things better than you. And that's okay, because nobody said that you had to be good at everything. It's okay to learn new things. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to admit that you've made mistakes, because if you make a mistake, that just means that you have the opportunity to do it better next time. And I feel like that's a skill that is dying nowadays, unfortunately, is because people just get so offended at everything. I always tell people when I meet them, or like when there's like a very tense situation, that I am the least offendable person you will ever meet. I may get kind of like irritated with something, but as far as like offended goes, I understand that I don't know everything, and I understand that there's always going to be somebody in the world that can do it better than me. And I'm perfectly okay with that, because I have a skill set, a very unique skill set. And I don't know, I like what I do, and I like to learn new things. And I feel like everybody should be like that, because, there may come a day and time where we would have to use these skills to, I don't know, barter, if you will, because you just never know with the world that we live in. Okay, so I feel like I've talked about a lot of different things. I've talked about products. I've talked about what I do, how I do it, where I learned it from, how much did it cost, supplies, all sorts of things. And the main thing that I want you guys to take away from this renovation, first of all, is that I am a real person, despite how some people online might see me. I assure you that I am a real person. And, I see a lot of the comments that people have, and, a lot of the comments that people make that are not so nice. And if there's a lesson out there to Anybody who's renovating an RV and putting it online, if you do it right, just give yourself some grace, because even the people who are really good at what they do are always going to be ridiculed. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because there's always going to be somebody who thinks that they can do it better, even though they have absolutely no skill set and no experience in doing what you're doing. I just don't get people sometimes, and so give yourself a little bit of grace, especially because this is quite the task to take under, especially if you are doing it with the intent that it's going to last and that's going to be better than the manufacturer makes them. You're going to have a lot of time and energy spent into a renovation. And that's something that I don't think most people see. There's some really good renovators out there that I follow. And I'm just always so amazed at the detail that they put into things, and the love that they put into their campers. And I've always been so impressed with them. One of my favorite renovators on Instagram, their name is Revamping Camping. And I remember when I first started doing this, like, I didn't have any followers. I was just the girl who repaired the water damage. Nobody cared for me for anything else other than helping people fix their water damaged campers, which is still what a lot of people come to me for. But I just remember reaching out to them because I had reached out to so many other big influencers when I first started, and none of them would give me the time of day. I don't know if they just saw me as competition, or they just thought that I wasn't going to ever do anything with my life, or I literally don't even, or maybe they didn't even see my message, because, that's also a possibility too. But I just remember that I reached out to them, with some logistical stuff about, getting insurance and my business and just other things like that. And they were so kind and so helpful to me when I was a nobody. And I'm still a nobody, but now I'm just a nobody with a lot of followers. And so y'all go over and follow them because they do incredible work over there. Like, it's really top notch, and they're one of my favorite influencers to see when they pop up on my feed, just because I know they do quality work, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. And what I won't tell you is all of the influencers that have a lot of followers on any other platform that do terrible work. I'm hoping that the people who truly know anything about campers or how to prevent water damage or anything else like that see the people and realize that they're giving terrible advice. But it's not my place to trash anybody, because that's not what I do and that's not who I'm about. Anyway, it is almost to the end of this video, and I am so sorry for those of you who think the sound of my voice is annoying, because you have now just listened to it for the past 47 minutes, and I do apologize. I thought about just putting some music on here, but every time I put music on it, like, I have to buy the copyright license for it, and then YouTube flags it, and then it's like a whole thing. I've had so many things on YouTube get flagged because there was music in it. Even though the people that I had make the video had license for it, but they still were like, oh, it's the copyright. Anyway, so that's why I didn't do that. Plus, there was a lot of things that I wanted to tell you guys about this renovation that I feel like I don't normally have the opportunity to tell you when I'm doing these how-to videos, because I'm too focused on telling you how to do something versus how I feel about things. And even though it is important to know how to do something, there's also a lot of other important things that you need to know about renovating an RV too, which I hope I have covered in this very long video. So now that we're almost to the end and you can see it finally come together, please let me know what you think about the final reveal and the transformation. I just absolutely love how this came together. The layout is a lot better. The style is a lot better. I just feel like it's more roomy and more homey, and my client absolutely loved it. Like, she loved it so much. I didn't record her, and I feel like I maybe should have, but I thought it was such a personal moment that I didn't want it to feel intrusive. So that's why I didn't. But she cried when she walked in. She absolutely loved it. And she actually lives right down the road from me. So I get to see it every time I drive by her house. And I get to know that she loves it as much as I do. And all of the hard work was absolutely worth it. And we'll see what God has in store next time for me, because up until this point, I'm not entirely sure what to do with my business because I finished this in November. It's now January and my kids don't get out of school until April. So technically I could do another renovation in April if I wanted to, but I'm also really enjoying spending time with my kids and going on trips and homeschooling and just enjoying being together, which is definitely a different pace for me because this is my first year homeschooling with all of my kids at home. So I've really, really enjoyed that more than I actually thought I would, because let me tell you, I enjoyed being at home by myself. So this is the final reveal right here, and it just turned out so beautiful and so amazing. And that is it, guys. I mean, I hope you have enjoyed this. Again, I have all these things linked in my Amazon storefront if you want to check it out. At least check out that link tree that's in my profile so you can see what other resources I have there for you guys. Because I do this and I record all this so you guys don't make some of the same mistakes that I made early on. So I really hope that this is helpful to you guys. And I really just thank you for watching my videos and supporting me.